Okay, so with more than 190 active wildfires burning across the province, the question remains, what more needs to be done? So for more on the battle for resources, we're joined now by Noah Freedman. He is a veteran wildland fire crew leader and the vice president of the union, of course, that represents forest fire responders in this province as well. He joins me here in studio. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, Arthi.
Okay, so you were also listening in to Premier Doug Ford as he was speaking there, and there's a few questions that I wanted to ask you about. You know, he was talking about 150 crews equating about 700 people. Is that enough given the way that we've seen the wildfire situation develop over the past few years, that it's intensified and there certainly is more of a dire situation, a dire need than there has been before?
Yeah, I mean, short answer is it's certainly not enough. The Premier said at the press conference over the weekend that there were 150 crews on the ground, but that included approximately 20 crews from out of Ontario. And so what that's telling us is our first kind of insight into the numbers is that Ontario actually only has about 130 of its own crews. And that's out of a historic 200 number. Now, climate change is getting worse. Other anthropogenic factors are getting worse. And so what that means is, and what the government has said in their own documentation, is that we need to be looking to the future in order to better defend the people of Ontario, right? This is the government of Protect Ontario. And yet, this government has commissioned reports time and time again, trying to investigate the issues as to why Ontario's fire program is losing so many staff, and has never implemented any of those recommendations. So Ontario's system is falling apart, and it's entirely the result of mismanagement at the government level.
And when you say that, what specifically is the issue here? Because we have heard the Premier talk about 170 permanent positions, increased compensation as well. There was a question too about the recommendation that has come from the union of the number of crews that would be required or should be required, and whether or not it should be full-time versus seasonal.
Yeah.
What did you make of that?
Yeah, there's lots of great questions, and it's also a lot of great politics. But like the Premier, I too get frustrated listening to rubbish, and I'm sure that all of our Ontario wildland fire staff feel the exact same way. The truth is that we have been talking with the government behind closed doors for several years now, explaining to them what needs to be done. Compensation is absolutely one of those factors. I believe it was Mike Harris, the minister, who stated that, you know, this is very much a student workforce. And that is true, but that is a creation of this government. And so when you pay people student wages to do, you know, what used to be a career, students show up and then students leave when they're done. And so that's unfortunately the problems that we're dealing with right now. You know, the reason we have so few crews but still so many fire staff is because we have less and less experienced people. And that means we need to build larger crews to put people with experience to help manage those crews and run those crews. But I do want to add, the wildfire management, the people that make the decisions on the fire teams at our level, brilliant people, experts at what they do. When I say that this is an issue of government neglect and mismanagement, I mean at the top level from the political realm, from Mike Harris, from Jill Dunlop, and from Premier Ford.
You know, I want to ask you, I'm taking a look at a statement that was issued by Canada's Prime Minister saying Canada is mobilizing more than 5,000 firefighters and nearly 300 water bombers, helicopters, and evacuation aircraft to contain, control, and mitigate the fires. That was a statement that we saw over the course of the weekend. You're a veteran wildland fire crew leader. Is that enough resources for the situation that we're seeing unfold right now? It's
certainly too late. And so I think the best way to put it is that this is a historic year, but it's not unprecedented. The government has been aware since 2022 at the latest, due to the Auditor General's Natural Hazard Emergency Management audit, that climate change is getting worse and that we have to prepare for it. Asking for things after we need them is not helpful and doesn't help us prevent these fires. And so, for example, if we don't have helicopters that fit one fire crew with all of their gear to go attack a small fire, then we don't successfully contain that fire. Because Ontario's entire wildfire strategy is get a fire while it's small and get it fast.
Does the province not have that?
The province has certainly delayed acquisition of helicopters, particularly for this season. I've heard from colleagues that this is the first year that the government did not sign a long-term helicopter contract, and that means that we've been having to hire helicopters on short-term contracts at short-term notice. But that's not always easy because A, when you ask for something after you need it, it becomes a lot more expensive, and that aircraft could be sitting in British Columbia, could be sitting in Alberta, and it's going to take time to get here. So those aircraft might be on the way, But it certainly didn't help us prevent these fires from escaping like they did.
We've been talking a lot about resources, but of course you've also had first-hand experience on the ground, so I do want to ask you about that. Given the resources that we have right now and how widespread the fire situation is, what is it likely that those crews who are on the ground are facing right now?
Yeah, it does seem hopefully like weather will be on our side, but at the same time, I can tell you from my own experience. So for example, when we don't have enough aircraft, okay, because this government is penny pinching the fire program, we're a $150 million program at this point. We've overspent the budget. Every year they've increased it, sometimes over doubling it, including last year. Just to put things into perspective, Toronto's police department is worth $1.5 billion. Ontario Wildland Firefighters are covering an area double the size of France with $150 million. It's really just a drop in the bucket. I can tell you from experience, when we do not have the helicopters and the equipment that we need, this means we end up with smaller aircraft that cannot fit that entire crew, that cannot fit that entire fire gear. And so what that means is, for example, I get a dispatch with my crew. I take half of them and half the gear. I fly to the fire. Let's say it takes 30 minutes. It could take quite a bit longer, but we get there in 30 minutes. I take a look at it and I go, we can get this, but with a full crew and with a full gear. And now we have to get out of the machine. I have to send that aircraft back another 30 minutes. It probably has to refuel. We have to get the crew, the rest of the crew and the rest of the gear on board. Helicopter goes back out. Now it's been 90 minutes to 2 hours since that alarm went off. The fire is hopefully still containable, but most likely it's going to require more people and more resources that we just don't have.
Okay. I want to thank you, Noah, for your insight on this. We appreciate your time, and we appreciate you coming here in studio, too.
Yeah, thank you so much, Arthi.
That is Noah Freedman. He is the Wildland Fire Crew leader and the vice president of a union representing forest fire first responders. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you so much.